Hello everyone, ex-Wallkill Bethelite here, and we just had another school shooting, not I guess too far from where I am. I've just recently moved to Texas, and I found out that the most recent school shooting where I believe 10 people have been pronounced dead and there are more that are injured, well, this happened in Texas. And Jehovah's Witnesses will probably knock on people's door. They may have some huge campaign using incidents like this in order to scare people, but essentially they're going to come to your door and, you know, mention the school shootings, and they may even have a magazine for this. I don't know. But what the householders need to do is not be intimidated because this individual rehearsed in their head a couple of scriptures that they wanted to say once they got to the door. Don't be intimidated, but engage in conversation and ask that Jehovah's Witness, well, what do you think we should do about the recent school shootings that have been so prevalent? And more than likely what they're going to say is, well, let me take you to a scripture. And basically they're going to show you a scripture where in God's kingdom there is not going to be any violence. Men will beat their swords into plows or pruning shears or something to that effect. There won't be any weapons, so there won't be a problem in God's kingdom. Now, what the householder then needs to do is look at the Jehovah's Witness and keep in mind a lot of the people that they proselytize to are Christian. So if that person is a Christian, they need to really tell the Jehovah's Witness, because a lot of them don't know this. They're aware of that. Every Christian on the planet knows that in God's kingdom, when everything is fixed, that won't be a problem. You woke up, got dressed, got your book bag and magazines, and went knocking on everybody's doors to tell them things they already knew. Everybody knows that in God's kingdom, these things, if you're a Christian, these things aren't going to be an issue, right? Because Christ is ruling over everyone. And still, you have a problem. Now, the Jehovah's Witness is going to want to jump from that to, well, we can study the Bible with you, which in essence means they can study Watchtower publications with you and make you a Jehovah's Witness. Before we get into that, the householder, before you let them get into the whole jumping from, well, in God's kingdom, none of these things will be a problem. Wouldn't that be nice? Before you let them go from that to, well, let me come to your house and study Watchtower books with you. First, wait a minute, but what do we do about this now? This is a problem now. People say that if everybody was a Jehovah's Witness, we wouldn't have these problems. That's false. That is extremely false. Most likely, if everybody was a Jehovah's Witness and everybody was just waiting for the end of the world to occur, most likely when a Jehovah's Witness did something, it would somewhat be ignored in the sense that there's been an Australian Royal Commission getting into sexual abuse of children that's been going on in the Jehovah's Witness organization for a long time. And if you speak to a Jehovah's Witness about the Australian Royal Commission, they ignore it. That's what they do when problems arise in the Jehovah's Witness organization. They ignore it. They focus on what the Catholics did, or what the Baptists did, or what's going on in this country here or country there, but they don't do anything about anything going on, or focus much on anything going on inside their own organization. As a matter of fact, they're most likely to point the finger at any other religious group, but the least likely to be upset about anything going on that shouldn't in the Watchtower organization, because there's a lot of Catholics that are really angry about some of the things that have gone on in that particular organization. There's a lot of Baptists that are angry about what's been going on in some of those organizations. There's a lot of people that are angry about the prosperity preachers that ask for money, 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 and then just tell you that all your problems are going to vanish, and they don't. There's a lot of people angry about that. But when Jehovah's Witnesses tell people, from youth up, that they should go and work at Bethel and live there and make it a career, and then Watchtower changes its mind, and these people are older and hadn't had any savings because they've been doing that work for Watchtower, and Watchtower hadn't been paying them, and these people are thinking that this is a career, so that's their plan for their future, is to be a Bethelite. That's their career, or their future plan is to grow old working at Bethel. And then Watchtower decides, now we're just going to start sending them all away. Well, the Jehovah's Witnesses, they don't have a problem with that because Watchtower did it. So since Watchtower did it, now instead of Bethel being a career, all of a sudden, they're just all volunteers. And then it was just time for the volunteers to leave. There isn't a single Jehovah's Witness that has been around for any number of years that think a regular Bethelite, not a temp worker, a regular Bethelite was just looked at as a volunteer. That was looked at as a career, that they were going to be at Bethel for the foreseeable future unless they decided to leave. No one had even heard of Bethel. Essentially, there's no word for it. You can't really call it a layoff. It's what it was, but you can't really call it a layoff because the people weren't necessarily paid. So there's no real term for it because it wasn't something that any of us ever expected to happen, which is what you would expect to happen if you're just volunteering for a period of time. People would have been getting sent back all the time because they volunteered for whatever period of time their voluntary service was scheduled for. That wasn't what was happening. Jehovah's Witnesses will flat out lie to you and tell you that all these Bethelites that had to leave, myself included, they knew that they were volunteers and that their voluntary service was about to be over for whatever reason. They will just make up a scenario because they ignore sexual molestation within Watchtower. They ignore how Watchtower treats people, whether they be Bethelites or whether they be people struggling with issues, and then Watchtower tells their people to just shun them, or whether it be people with questions and Watchtower tells their people to shun them. The people that think that these school shootings and nothing would happen if everyone was a Jehovah's Witness, they're delusional. They're delusional. Things happen in that organization. I don't know why people think Bethel is perfect, other than they read in the Watchtower. But things happen at Bethel while I was there. Things I'm sure are happening at Bethel now. So being a Jehovah's Witness is not the solution to any problem. Because Bethel was full of nothing but what? Jehovah's Witnesses, right? So you had all kinds of fights where people were throwing other people's furniture out the room and throwing them down the steps and everything. You had all kinds of things going on. You had suicides, or essentially people winding up dead, and the story was that it was a suicide. You had wife swapping. You had all kinds of sexual things going on. You had older men doing things with younger kids. You had a lot going on, and this is in Watchtower. So the concept that if everyone was a Jehovah's Witness, none of this stuff would happen is false. Look at the Australian Royal Commission. It wouldn't be there if that was true. That's false. Now, Jehovah's Witness theology essentially is that the solution to all these school shootings is to wait for the Battle of Armageddon and for God's kingdom. And while we do that, be passive, don't get involved in the political realm that's people are getting involved in to try to solve some of these things. They don't want to get involved with anything but knocking on people's doors and giving them magazines and telling them to wait for God's kingdom. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And when you have things happen like these school shootings, you see how ridiculous Jehovah's Witness theology is. We can't sit around with our hands folded and expect everything to just be better. We can't sit at home waiting for the end of the world and expect things to just get better. We have to do something about this now. Now. Jehovah's Witnesses want to wait until God's kingdom. Every Christian on earth knows that in God's kingdom everything will be okay. We need to do something about that now. Now, comment down below. I mean, I have my views on it. I don't know that, the discussion of arming people in the school will necessarily solve it. I don't know that there's an all-around solution, but I definitely wonder about counseling, as far as the schools and mental health, because people don't need to necessarily wait until they're adults to start getting help psychologically or emotional or mental health. Kids go through things and make decisions, obviously, to go get a weapon and fire it in crowds of people. So there apparently is no age where especially young adults, teenagers, where they would be exempt from possibly needing mental help. And sometimes, unfortunately, kids are neglected. And the parents are ignoring, if they have parents, it could be foster care or whatever, but people ignore them because they're kids. Oh, they don't have any problems because they're kids, so they don't necessarily have anybody to talk to. Well, my thought is, to have more mental health. I mean, this sounds crazy, but to some people, because they're thinking, just take all the guns away. I don't know, but a kid get into a fight, they need to go through a mental health evaluation course, find out what happened, what's going on, talk to us. You see something crazy on Facebook, something violent, now that's tough because you get into people's personal privacy, but let's talk to the guidance counselors, the mental health specialists, that's going to cost money because these people, you'd have to pay them. But it's an idea that if everyone in that school, every child in those schools have access to confidential assistance, someone that they can all talk to, even the ones that are getting picked on, they don't have anybody to talk to at home. They may not have any friends in school, that they have someone to sit down and talk to and let it all out verbally, versus getting a weapon. In my mind, and I could be wrong, if that's an option, maybe the kid picks, I want to sit down and I'm going to talk about how I feel and what's going on with me, and possibly, get additional professional help. That's a better solution than going to get a weapon, shooting a bunch of people, end up in prison. So, that's what I think. Now, the Jehovah's Witness side of me, because I was born and raised Jehovah's Witness, gets confused with respect to all the political things and things that, because we were so passive, our solution to everything was to just not get involved. So it's not that you have Jehovah's Witness kids necessarily better than everybody else's kids or better behaved. They're just sheltered. They're not allowed to do anything. See, they're not allowed to be involved with sports. They're not allowed to be involved with after-school activities. They may not be allowed to run for school president. If they can't interact with people, that's not necessarily being better than anyone else. Better behaved is just being shielded away from or being isolated. From that perspective, criminals in prison are probably pretty well behaved because they're locked in cells and can't do very much to anybody outside the prison. It's not that these people are better than everybody else. They're in a cell. They can't do anything. Similar to the whole Jehovah's Witness sheltering their kids and keeping them away from everything, and then turning around and pretending to be better than everyone else. When they're knocking on the door and pointing the finger at everybody. It's just a bunch of, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I was thinking about a security blanket. And for a lot of people, being a Jehovah's Witness is a security blanket. And if you think about a little kid that, when they get scared, they grasp their teddy bear, or they grab their favorite blanket and they pull that blanket up to them, all the way up to their chin, and kind of hide under that blanket. It makes them feel safe, feel better. But if you were to literally sit that child down and ask them, well, if something were to happen, what do you expect that teddy bear to do? They don't know. Well, when you squeeze up underneath that blanket, what exactly is that blanket going to do? How is that making you safe or putting you in a better situation? They don't know. It's a security, but it just makes them feel better. You don't ask kids things like that. There's just certain things that make them feel better. Maybe going under the bed. I don't know. But for Jehovah's Witnesses, being a Jehovah's Witness is a security blanket. It makes them feel better. You have all these shootings, and in their minds, well, I'm a Jehovah's Witness, so I'm not involved with it. Or you have conflicts between nations, and in their mind, I'm a Jehovah's Witness, so I'm not involved with it, so I'm better. It's a security blanket. You sit down and you ask them, how is it making you better? What do you think the solution to the problem is? Well, it's to wait for God's kingdom to come and wait for God to fix it. They don't have no answers. They're not any better than anybody else. They got commissions into sexual abuse going on in Watchtower. They're not any better than anyone else. The name Jehovah's Witness, They would use that more than Christian, because that name is designed to make you feel separate and to make you feel better than other people. You ask them, why does it make you feel better? Give me details. They don't know. It just feels good to go around saying, I'm a Jehovah's Witness. Well, what are you witnessing? You seen God? What are you witnessing? No, they don't know. It makes them feel better. That's the whole thing about it. Going around knocking on everybody's door. They don't have any solutions to anybody's problems. It just makes them feel special. It's a security blanket. That's one reason why a lot of people won't leave the Jehovah's Witnesses. Number one, Christianity, real Christianity, is 100% foreign to them. The concept that Jesus loves me and that's it. I don't have to do anything or suffer. That's beyond them. They need someone to be tight-fisted and controlling or even maybe abusive, taking them away from their family to make them feel, like they're a part of something. The whole Christian, Jesus loving you, coming as you are. You don't have to go get a suit to go to church. That's so foreign to them. They don't understand that. So the whole concept for the Jehovah's Witness is hiding behind a name. And that name makes them feel better. Christianity seems foreign to them. It seems hard to understand. Just knocking on doors and feeling like you're smarter than everyone else because in your mind, I have the solution to every problem in the world, and it's to wait for God's kingdom. No one else knows that. I'm so smart. You know what I mean? And ignore everything that goes on in Watchtower and point the finger to everybody else and say, well, I'll study the Bible with you. You come to Watchtower and I just fixed everything. Oh, I'm so smart. Like it's just, it's a security blanket that doesn't make any sense. And the recent school shootings show that you can't just sit back. If we all just sat back and did nothing, then it just wouldn't stop. It would just continue. So comment down below. Let me know what you think. The concept of all-out mental health. I mean, full-blown someone to talk to and everything. For people that are isolated at school and are getting bullied. And, on top of the bullying, go home and maybe have abuse there. And they don't have any outlet. They don't have anybody to talk to. Some kind of a system of not just a teacher to talk to, a professional. So let me know what you think about that. And let me know what you think about the whole passivism. How's that fixing something? Passivism. I just won't get involved with it. It doesn't make me better. I don't have a solution to anything. I just won't get involved with anything that's, going on. So, 937-789-4029. We can chat about it. And this is X Walk Hill Bethelite signing out.